I am Sophia Morton, and I'm going to talk to you today about polar bears. Polar bears are carnivorous and heavily rely on seals in the Arctic Sea. They have been classified as a marine animal due to their dependence on aquatic prey. They are only listed as vulnerable on the endangerment scale, and contrary to popular belief, they are not at huge risk from the ice in the north melting. They were first documented as vulnerable in 2005, and since then many companies and research facilities have been working on some numbers of survival. First of all, anywhere from 60 to 80% of the bears live in Canadian territories. Their species is projected to decline 30% by 2050. The first notice of there starting to be any problems was in 1973, and Canada set a law in order to limit polar bear hunting due to population starting to diminish. Polar bears have translucent fur, both guard hairs and undercoat. Their guard hairs are also hollow. This helps the bears stay floating longer while they swim in the Arctic water. The transparency of the fur reflects lights, and the color you end up seeing is white. This helps them hunt as their surroundings are white. Polar bear skin is black to help soak up extra rays for warmth. They also have a 4.5-inch thick layer of fat under their skin to help them keep warm. Their thick fur helps them keep warm on land, and the fat helps them keep warm in water, where fur is useless to keeping in heat. One of the biggest problems polar bears face now is starvation. The ice doesn't necessarily affect them directly, besides the loss of hunting grounds and chances of eating. Their food sources, seals, are affected by the ice melting. The seals they hunt are the ring seal and the bearded seal. Those seals are still in the area, but with the ice melting away more and more during summer, polar bears can't catch them. Polar bears require ice to hunt, as they hunt directly at the breathing holes of the seals. They can't swim under fast or far enough to catch them otherwise. With more and more polar bears starving every day, many have resorted to cannibalism. Although cannibalism helps them survive longer, it only helps that single bear, because as they eat their own species to death, the population will continue to go down. The ice melting is still bad for them. Many polar bears drown more and more each year as the ice is melting. Throughout the winter, most of the females bunker down and raise their cubs in small shelters on mainland. But in the summer, the bears are all out and about, mostly on the ice in the ocean. With the ice melting more and more, bears have to swim further and further off the coast to get to a hunting area offshore. Polar bears can swim for long periods of time without rest, but it's harder and harder for them to make it out to the ice each year, with many drowning as an outcome, adding to their population's downfall. But before all of this is happening, how did polar bears evolve? Well, first of all, polar bears evolved from grizzly bears starting around 300,000 years ago. At that time, much of the world was covered in glaciers, and all of the Arctic Ocean was fully frozen. Grizzlies were freely exploring them, and eventually a group of many bears likely trekked further north in search of more food. They survived further north as well as they could, but around 225,000 years ago they were isolated and became stuck surrounded by glaciers. At that time the food was running low, and many of those bears died off due to being used to plentiful food. Eventually, the surviving population of grizzly bears in the north started resorting to some dead seal carcasses they came across. Then, a while after trying to live off the dead seals, they found holes in that ice, and found seals breathing in the holes. After that, they started hunting the seals directly from their holes. Even before finding a way to hunt seals, the grizzlies had thicker coats of fur, survived better in the harsh tundra conditions compared to those that did not have the thick fur. Those thick-furred bears bred more and had children that could survive at higher rates than grizzlies that still had fur built for warmer environments. The surviving populations made up of bears with fur built for the tundra's conditions. Eventually, some of the thick-furred bears randomly mutated to have the translucent fur they have today. That translucent fur helps them blend better with the snow and ice, and their prey had a harder time seeing they were there. A few thousand years ago, after the two main changes of fur thickness and color, there was another change. That change was the bear's teeth. The grizzly teeth were mostly made up of molars due to being omnivores. But seeing as they were little to no plants in the north, and a reliance on meat, their teeth changed longer and sharper to slice through seal hide. They also grew to have a sleeker body to adapt to swimming, and better metabolism rates to survive the cold for long periods of time without food. So much of the population of tundra grizzlies changed with these new adaptations. The population of normal grizzlies soon died off. Some of the normal bears still bred and remained for many generations, but were eventually overrun by bears with the advantageous traits. Those new traits to the emergence of Ursus maritimus, the polar bear.